Jane, thanks for coming on the show.
That's all right, thank you.
It's an honor and a pleasure.
Je t'aime, oh oui, je t'aime. Moi non plus.
I was sitting on my couch yesterday thinking of what we could talk to you about today, and I realized that above me I have a picture of you on my wall that I hadn't actually connected until yesterday, that I have a still from Blow Up hanging in my apartment. And I said, oh, wait, I actually look at her every day. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a little trippy to have you here in front of me. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Positive. Yeah. Anyway, so you're here in New York because you're performing at Carnegie Hall, right?
Yeah.
So that's not a shabby venue.
It's not a shabby venue. No.
And it's the first time you've performed here in a while, right?
Yeah, I did the town hall.
Okay.
And I did the French Institute.
Uh-huh.
And maybe a third. So I've been here before on shows, one of which was with Nobuyuki Nakajima, who'd done the orchestrations. I'd done another show with him. I think that was at the town hall.
Okay.
That was a different
lovely
project.
Yeah, it was about, I can't even remember.
Okay.
5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Do you come back to New York often to visit your lovely daughter who was just on our show also?
I'd like to have come much, much more often, but I was too ill. I couldn't. I wasn't allowed to. But now I'd love to.
Yeah.
Because it's really so easy and such fun to be with her.
Right.
I'm so stressed out for Thursday that I'm in a hotel.
Right.
So I feel as if I'm in a foreign land.
Yeah, sure.
But this won't be the first time you're performing with this arrangement, this big orchestra? No.
No, I've been doing it for about a year.
Wow. How does that feel?
It's lovely because the 65 musicians with cellos and violins and I don't know, it just is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. So it's as if you're suddenly allowed to sing on a bit of Gustav Mahler. I don't know. And I'm put into quite a lot of comfort by Nobuyuki, who's given me bits where I start off with the piano and then the others come in, and so I'm on a sort of cushion of velvet. It's rather lovely. I just mustn't bish anything up because you can't suddenly say, oh, whoops, I'm starting again with 65 people.
Yeah, it's a lot of people to get back on the same page. Yeah. So let's zoom out for a second. Right. If you could just tell people what project we're talking about exactly and maybe how it came to be.
It came to be because about 3 years ago, I did a project with Michel Piccoli and Hervé Pierre, which was reading Serge Gainsbourg's words without any music.
Okay.
And it was an idea that Philippe Le Richaume, my director artistique, and Serge's had when I didn't know what to do, when my daughter Kate had died, and I'd stayed, as people do, at home and not moving for a year, and then got ill. And so I couldn't really do a show, but the idea to actually get out and be amongst friends, which I was with Piccoli, who's played my father in many films, it was actually the best possible thing to do of an evening. So we went round most of France, a little bit to foreign countries, not that much. Then we went to Canada. There I met Monique Géraud, who's a friend who was a journalist, and I was explaining that usually Serge's exquisite words went with classical music when he wanted to give us the very best. So if he panicked because he felt he hadn't given me enough for Baby Alone in Babylon, then whoops, it was on Brahms, or same thing for Jane B on Chopin. For Charlotte, it was a Zeste de Citron. And there again, classical music, Lost Song, the same. Initials BB for Brigitte Bardot was equally classical music. So I was explaining all this to her. And she said, well, why don't you do it with a symphony orchestra? And I said, well, that would be pushing it a bit, given my voice. And she said, but I could give you one, in that the Montreal Philharmonic Orchestra could do it with you. And you could have a night at the Francopholies, which is one of the biggest French festivals, French-speaking festivals, and they know Serge's work so terribly well. And so I thought, well, if it's just a one-off like that, maybe if Philippe Le Richaume could choose the little, the songs would sing that would look right, seem right, sound right with a symphony orchestra, and if Nobuyuki Nakajima could do the orchestrations, it would be like movie music, and in that case, perhaps one wouldn't be bored, and perhaps in that case, it wouldn't sound pretentious to be singing with because people do it. Musical people, when they don't know what to do at the end of a career, then alley up.
Right.
And so it had to be different, and I've always admired movie music from John Barry's, but also Michel Jarre, also the fabulous music for Fellini. So it was so, and they came up with the orchestrations and. Yes, you don't know which song you're going to. When you've got classical arrangements, you can have rather frightening cellos and violins going on, whilst the little tune sounds so sweet and everything's going well. No undertones of disaster.
Yeah.
And it's very, very exciting. So that's how it started for one go. Then I lost my voice in Canada. Was taken to hospital. They said to another second show, and I thought, well, no. Perhaps if I can just speak it, and it works as well.
With the orchestrations.
With the orchestrations, because otherwise it means they wouldn't have heard all the wonderful orchestrations, and everyone was there to do 2 nights.
Right.
And then we should have gone through China, but I wasn't given my permit because of sticking up for the Dalai Lama.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so goodbye Shanghai.
Wow. So you had to cancel dates there?
Yeah. And it was going to be recorded for a live record. So,
oh, man.
But it was lucky because it would have been a one-off. Perhaps it would have been disastrous. And as it was, we went to Poland, where there's a wonderful symphony orchestra, where we had a date anyway, and we just kept them for 5 days, made the record. And that came out first. So people that didn't really believe in the project, you could say, listen to this.
I mean, it's gorgeous. It definitely is proof that it works.
Yeah.
So the title of the new project, the symphonic orchestra project, is Birkin, Gainsbourg, Le Symphonique. And how much is it taken directly from the music of Jane Birkin, Serge Gainsbourg from 1969? Because the title just suggests that it's a sort of reimagining of that collection, but is it not necessarily to be thought of that way?
It doesn't matter how you think. I think that the most beautiful songs were the ones that were at the separation and after. So Baby Alone in Babylon with Les Deux Sous Chic and Faire le Bonheur, I think are the most beautiful songs that have ever been written about separations, but too cool, absolutely wonderful. But as it can't just be miserable, and then Philippe thought of many other songs like the Chanson de Prévert that I'll be singing with Rufus Wainwright, and other songs like Javanaise that was certainly not of my epoch. He wrote it for Juliette Greco. Why not one that he wrote for Adjani? Why not Lagadou, which is rather jolly, because otherwise it's just so sad.
Need some levity to it.
You need a bit of levity, as you say,
and to span more of the more of his work.
Yes, and,
so it's
and
not
they
just
were the
that
one
time.
Exactly, and so that was the dates that were the earliest ones, really, because the ones afterwards were indeed sad.
Now, Jane, I have to ask you. You mentioned John Barry and you love his music. How have you been able to maintain such a healthy relationship with the work of your ex-partners?
I haven't.
No? Meaning
Just Serge.
You've gone... Oh, okay.
I mean, John Barry never wrote anything for me, so there's nothing to sing.
Right.
As Serge wrote for me from when I was 20 until the day he died.
Yeah.
I mean, really, in that he did a song called Amour des Feintes, which is Love of Feigning or Love of the Dead, that was literally 3 months before, with 12 songs again. And with Jacques Doyon, Lou Doyon's father, then I made movies, of which I made 3. And if I can stick up for them in Cinematheques, then I do, because they're probably the best films I ever made. So, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'm just saying it's like this beautiful thing that you
Yeah.
I would imagine that emotionally you've had your ups and downs through these relationships breaking apart and moving on and different chapters and how you relate to everything to do with those relationships, but that you've been able to keep the love of the work, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very steady-headed at the time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's quite romantic. It's romantic, the idea of you and Serge separating, but they're remaining creatively potent and
that was what was extraordinary for me, that
dynamic.
someone would go on wanting to write for you, whereas you'd gone off with somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
And that person needed you for maybe his very feminine side. I think that's what he gave me. He went on doing songs so he could, I don't know, burn his 500 franc notes on the television or be outrageous.
Right, the provocateur.
And that he needed.
Yeah.
But he also needed a sentimental side and a broken side.
What did that feel like at the beginning when you were separated and then he came to you with these songs, with new songs? And was it surprising to experience that at the beginning? Like, wow, we're still going to maintain this relationship?
Sure?
Or was it just completely natural and it didn't even feel strange?
No, it wasn't natural. It was very strange. No, it was.
Yeah, so it's what you would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go back to the house where you've lived for 13 years and he's at the piano, and then you cough a bit because your cigarette gets in your eye, and he says, so now you can't even take some cigarettes. No. And you've no, it was definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was honoured. I kept on saying, you don't have to do it, because he was so tired. He did 2 songs in the night, and then he'd come to the recording studios and say, and it was Fuir the Bonheur and Les Deux Sous Chic. Then the next day he'd come back and he still hadn't slept, and wham, he got another 2. By the end, we'd come to Friday. I thought he wouldn't make it, and I could see him visibly moved behind the glass. All I could do was to sing as high as I could, to try and do it as best I could. But of course I realized that he was asking me to sing his pain. It was a very, very strange, for the others not so, or not so much so. And he liked the idea that I can't remember what he said, something like we're history, you know. But and so he played on that, and so did I.
Yeah.
Because I was so grateful.
Yeah. How much of your identity as a singer and a musical artist is tied up with him, and how much?
Totally.
Like 100%, you feel?
Well, I would think 60%.
You don't have to give an exact percent. Oh, 60, okay.
Because I've made records of duos with other people, because
Right.
everyone wrote, after he died, everyone wrote me duos. And actually they did rather well. And it was fun because you could be with people.
Right.
And it was from François Hardy to absolutely everyone, Souchon. And Etienne Dao. They were really wonderful, sweet songs that they gave me to sing that they'd written for me. And then another record, similarly. Then I wrote my own record, which didn't do well, which was called Enfants d'hiver, Winter's Children, but of which there are at least 2 or 3 songs that I would be proud of. And then, no, the rest is him. And of course I get asked to be on other people's albums or to sing a duo, to do this or that. And that's fun, because it's something that's rather lovely to be able to still go on doing.
Right.
But the identification is totally with him.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel that actually you're not worth much without him song-wise. That's very true.
It's interesting. The one noticeable thing that's not on the new album and this project is the duo that you had with him, the famous Je t'aime song. And I heard you say that how could it be? The other half isn't there, and it would be inconceivable to record it or perform it with someone else. Which just speaks to, I think, how alive that music is. It's not, reinterpreting the music of Cole Porter or someone else, some other composer that it's been done a million times, and you're bringing your own thing to it. That's something in itself. But these songs have a live, like, living history where you wouldn't think of singing it or performing it with someone else.
No, we never did, because we did it in 68, and he and I never sang it together ever. Not through the 15 years that we were together either. Or for the rest of the years, of course not. Because it was, in those days too, it was a recorded thing, and it was so famous.
Right.
And for a charity show, we might have mumbled it once. I'm not even sure that we did. I'm not even sure. So it wasn't something that I didn't do directly. He died out of being, sacrilegious. Not at all. Something we didn't do at all. Point. And certainly not to have somebody else. And I wasn't courageous enough to talk his bit.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose one could have done, but it was so much his song, and he'd already sung it with Bardo that I didn't feel that I could.
Mm-hmm.
But on this concert at the Carnegie Hall on Thursday, and on the record, I've taken 2 of my songs off so that Nobuyuki Nakijima's versions of Initials BB, A Zest de Citron of Charlotte's, and Turkish Market and Je t'aime non plus are played by the symphony orchestra, and it brings tears to your eye. That because you realise what a wonderful song it was. It's just da 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 and 3 notes, da 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 4, and you know where you are when you heard it, and so it was irresistible and so beautiful that I thought that it would be missing. Even though it has nothing to do with me, apart from Je t'aime non plus, nothing, I'm not going to sing them. But I thought it should be there with the orchestra.
That's lovely.
So they're played, just not sung.
That's nice.
Yes, for about 6 minutes. Absolutely wonderful.
Wow.
I feel like we just harmonized our wow.
When you hear that, are you transported back to 1969? Or I'm curious how it was, the experience of being a young actress turned singer and muse of this pop star in France. The swinging 60s were, in full bloom at this point. And what was that like for you? Like, what, can you go back there viscerally?
No.
Do you want to?
Do you?
No. No, because I don't think you have any idea. I didn't have any idea of what it was like, or how unflustering it was, and how normal it seemed. I mean, now perhaps it doesn't, but when it happens like that, little by little, and you're number 1 in charts of because of Je t'aime non plus and everything like that. No, but when I do hear it at the end of the show, when it's the orchestral version, then it does make you cry, because then I know how moved he'd be. I know that he would not have a dry eye. It's too lovely, and it's what he wanted, because for his film Je t'aime non plus, he was able to have nearly a symphony orchestra, because it was movie music and it was paid for by the producers, so it was luxurious. And he wanted it to be the most beautiful thing on his film that was otherwise a film that was set in, 1950s petrol pump sort of very Dennis Hopper sort of land.
Right.
But he wanted this sumptuous générique. And he was so thrilled by it, to have so many. It's rare to be able to pay for so many musicians. When you're a French composer, you don't get paid to do the movie. So they pay for the séance, but they don't usually give enough money to have that many instruments. So he was allowed to have this luxury for Je t'aime non plus and Manon, because they were both movie musics. And I saw what it did to him. So I know on that he would be well pleased. I know he'd be well pleased actually to be in New York and to be at the Carnegie Hall. And he didn't play New York. He didn't even play Canada. Wow. I mean, he was very short-lived as a live artist, sadly.
Yeah.
So there, he is there.
Yeah.
His music's there.
That's beautiful.
It must be remarkable now to see the appreciation and adoration for him now. I mean, I feel like he was beloved in his time in France and in Europe, but more so now here. Would you say that's true?
I think it's true that it's. I mean, the day he died, everything stopped in France. He thank God had been loved before he died. He could have missed it. He could have been someone who was so outrageous and so much ahead of his time, and never repeating himself. I mean, his work's a bit like somebody. I mean, it's not pretentious to say Picasso, because I can't think of another example where somebody had a rose period and a blue period and the cubic period and the surrealist period, and just went on changing.
Yeah.
I think probably he'd think it was old hat even to bring in lots of instruments and be sumptuous. I don't know. Always ahead. So it was amazing in that case when he pissed a lot of people off, where people could be very shocked by him, that actually about 2-3 years before dying, I think he knew how loved he was by the whole of France. And Philippe Le Richomme did TV shows with him where 50 little boys came forward. It seems strange now that 50 little lads would come forward with gitane cigarettes in their mouths, singing Je suis venu te dire que je t'aimais. And that there he was crying because of being so moved at seeing these little boys. So it was the mood of France. So when he died, actually, he was probably the most loved person in France. So now the appreciation of his work and of his literary work and of how probably poetically wise he's changed everybody since. They've all been influenced by him is something that's got bigger and bigger. But even when I sang at the Savoy Theatre after he died, and I'd gone over to England and the British press, I mean, the chic ones were fine, but the Sun, or I don't know what, trashy newspaper, said, "Oh, you're going to show us a bit of leg Jane for the photo." I said, "No." And then they said, "Have you made any other dirty songs, Jane?" I thought, oh, how can they be so unaware of who Serge is? Then instead of crying, I thought, no, I must go back to France and I must ask other people of whom they've heard so that I can prove it. So I rang up Yves Saint Laurent, Jean-Luc Godard, Mitterrand, Chirac, absolutely, Catherine Deneuve, Françoise. I mean, every single person that I thought, at least they know the Minister of Education, and that they would each write who Serge was to them. So when Chirac wrote, Serge is our Apollinaire, our Baudelaire, I think it was Mitterrand, then I went back to England with it all handwritten and printed underneath and translated into English, and I was able to say, there, voila, that's what they think of him in France. And Dirk Bogarde came onto the stage to explain to the English who I was to the French, because he too had had a career in Italy where sometimes the English had been a bit blasé and hadn't perhaps realised he'd done films with Visconti. So, you know, it suddenly made me aware that in a very short time after he died there, you know, it was... He was as great as, considered to be one of France's greatest writers, if not the greatest of his time. Yeah.
How aware and comfortable are you with your own legacy?
Which means
you are such an icon and mean so much to so many people through so many things that you've done over the years. But I get a sense that you are kind of self-deprecating, very humble person.
I'm not a humble person at all. Not at all. It's just that people exaggerate when they say fashion icon. I mean, even the word icon, I don't merit that in reality.
Okay.
I think I've done about 10 good films where I was all right and some more than all right. But for the ones that most people know, like Blow Up or the Agatha Christie films, I was nothing in them. I mean, the films were, but I was nothing. To be honest, they came into being great cultural things, but it wasn't like Charlotte. Charlotte was an actress right from the word go, and she had her own statement to make, and yes, she was something. Kate, my daughter, as a photographer, made a statement. Lou writes her own stuff in English and writes the music. At 30, suddenly was Artist of the Year. You know, so they've really made their mark. I was a sort of jolly actress that suddenly did a bit better than people imagined in dramatic things like with Patrice Chéreau.
Right.
That was really good. And with other plays I've done, that was really good. But so it's not self-depreciating. It's, I think, very lucid. And I mean, if you're known for a bag, then what can I say? You know, it's really not it's really not to do with anything I've made, or I would have loved to have done something that was very typically mine. They've all been associated really with somebody else.
Are you seeking to do something that
No.
is yours?
No.
No. But I mean that you have time. But,
We will
God willing
see.
for all
But
of
even
us.
this right now, that doesn't feel it because of how much
Because
of it
it's for
because it's Serge.
No,
That doesn't.
I think it's the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
That's great.
That and arabesque
Okay.
with the Arab orchestra.
Uh-huh.
I think they were really great.
Yeah.
But I can't say it's not as if when you ask me the question of whether it's completely me. No,
Right.
it's not. But I think that I was one of his best interpreters. I think because of being an actress, I play it really well.
Uh-huh.
Because I knew the person so well, then I have to watch it, because you can't suddenly cry or be indecent, or anyhow you lose your voice, so you can't. And it's been 26 years now, so someone will take over those songs. It won't matter anymore what the actual inspiration was. My mother had a song written for her, which was A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square, that was very, very well known during the war. It was written for her.
Wow.
She was Noel Coward's muse during the war.
Wow.
I mean, and now people will sing A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square, possibly. Another song that was written about her, which was da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, the telephone that never answers, These Foolish Things. Because Ma picked me up once saying, when I got something wrong, like only 20 pounds a kilo or something, she said, it's not that, and she told me the other price. And I said, well, how would you know? And she said, well, it was written about me. So the telephone that rings but doesn't answer.
These foolish things.
Wow.
Yeah. So later on, you no longer, if they're great songs, then other people think, oh yeah, well, my phone didn't ring either, or his phone didn't ring either.
Yeah.
And they won't know where it had started off.
Oh. Well,
Great songs are great songs.
Yeah.
How does that tie into your decision to now release maybe some of your diaries?
It's all I had left. It's all I have left to show, to give. And some of it's very, very funny, much funnier than I thought, the anecdotes. And some of it is such a terrible, constant insecurity that it's quite wearying, really, when you've got that characteristic from being 12 until being 60, you know. I can understand that perhaps it didn't work with everybody, you know. I think John Barry got really pissed off. And you can't be with this child who's cutting up their legs because you haven't thought about them, or you haven't got something to say in the middle of the night. So yes, I wrote a play called Sorry, Were You Asleep? About somebody who bugs somebody all night long because they can't sleep. I mean, I couldn't sleep. The other person's asleep, and it's really annoying. You try and find things to wake them up. Little pretext is, oh, sorry, were you asleep? So that was a good idea.
Yeah.
But I can sort of see on reading the diaries that you actually don't change.
Yeah.
And the unbelief in yourself, the cruelty at boarding school from other girls, the feeling that you were not attractive. Not that you weren't pretty, but not attractive to the person you loved, and that they went. Then after that, to have met Serge, who actually drew girls that looked half like boys, and actually found the beauty of boys very irresistible, then what good fortune. I mean, some people say, we can get over it, you know, not having any bosoms. Well, it's okay. But to have actually somebody who says bosoms frighten me, I think he exaggerates a bit after Bardot. I think I think he might have said that
Case
to
by
please me a
case.
bit. Yes.
Yeah. Well, is there some catharsis in sharing these things with the world? Does it help you let go a little bit, or what is the compulsion to share?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that probably closer to the time, it'll be rather unpleasant.
Yeah.
You know?
Will it be coming out
Yeah.
as a book in book form,
Yeah.
or did you consider turning it into music form?
No.
No.
Already I'm stressed out the idea of it actually coming out, because it's fine to talk about little anecdotes, but
Yeah.
the rather measly, horrible things about oneself that you would have rather cut out or changed.
Right.
I felt morally I couldn't do that. So they're there.
So it'll be unedited.
So
Wow.
I've taken things out that would wound people,
Okay.
but not that would wound me.
Yeah. Do your daughters have first read on it, or
They did, and they didn't want to.
Oh, okay. Do you think they were afraid they would ask you to make changes, and that's why they didn't want to see it? Or?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I think that they probably felt that I would be probably quite fair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that it worries me more
Right.
to think that I would leave something in that would wound somebody.
Yeah. Is it nice that you and your daughters are having, in some ways, parallel careers right now? Do you guys get to share? You and Charlotte had albums out around the same time, right?
Same time, and Lou at one time, there was Charlotte and Lou and me.
Yeah.
But it was fun, but we're very pudique. We don't talk about the métier. I don't
Okay.
know whether other people have got actresses, daughters, or mothers and fathers. It's not something we talk about. We talk about private life, but we don't talk about. I didn't even know when her show was on in Paris because I didn't ask, and she didn't say.
That's so
And
funny.
I don't like flaunting either, and I don't want to know whether she's coming on Thursday, and because I want to be good, and I'm too frightened of letting her down or her being disappointed.
Yeah.
But would
And
you like to
so-
see her perform? Are you
Well,
like,
I've
tell
got
me when your show is?
I've got my tickets already.
Right.
Of course,
Okay.
of course.
That's funny.
And I think she'll scoop up Artist of the Year as well.
Yeah.
In a
That
week's
album
time.
is brilliant.
Wonderful.
Yeah, truly. And please tell Lou that we would love to have her on this show.
Oh,
I
yes.
will tell
Yes,
you.
the trifecta.
She's writing it right now. I mean, she's written it,
Yeah.
We would love
and
okay.
she's in a studio now.
Nice. I follow her on Instagram. She's a very good Instagram post.
She is.
Good.
Yes.
Good recommendation.
She
Yes, she's a
inspires
wonder.
me. She always makes songwriting look very romantic.
Ooh.
There's always like a great cup of coffee.
No, but she's also somebody very fascinating to watch because I think if she finds I don't know whether you'd say a delight in Instagram, but that it's worth doing for her is that when she sees something that she likes, and she's terribly inquisitive, so if she sees a wonderful expo, or if she sees a musician, or if she sees a film, usually that aren't making much money possibly, then she puts it online, and then people
helps
might
other
follow
people
her and
discover
go.
it. Yeah.
So I think that that's what she finds the joy of it. And also she finds something to say each day.
Right.
I wouldn't. And I'm not of that generation.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much I like it.
Yeah.
In that if you're on a holiday and you think you're far away from everybody and there's a photo of a sheep that everyone says, oh, those sheep were quite funny in Manchester. And you think, hey, who was with us in Manchester with the sheep? And then you think, oh, yeah, bloody Instagram.
Right. No, it's true. Always a blessing and a curse. Yeah. Well, Jane, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on the
Thank
show, and have a great
Have a wonderful time.
performance.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the album is absolutely gorgeous. So for those of you who won't be seeing it live, just dwell on the album. It's an experience in and of itself. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Thank you.